Hello, welcome to the show. Thank you for choosing such an important topic relevant to this month and actually this generation's problems. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, of course, right. So, hi to everyone who's watching this, and hello to you, Aakarsh. My name is Atri, and I'm an incoming MSc Clinical Psychology student. And professionally, I'm working at Emojar as the editor in chief. I'm here today to talk about a very important topic, which I feel is very important, and that is men's mental health. Since it's the mental health month, and I think this is something which has been ignored over the years, and I think we it's high time we start paying attention to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the phrases that have been used, such as to man up or you should not cry in public for men.
Right.
So, how can they impact one's mental health?
I think the term man up has a lot to do with things like, for example, like if you want to state an incident, like where you ever been asked to man up? Tell me first.
Yes, yes,
Right? So those are the times, if you notice, men want to be emotionally vulnerable. They want to be emotional. They want to seek help. They want support. But what they are forced onto instead is that you have to man up. So it's like there's a continuous rescuing behavior where it's like, no, you are not allowed to feel your feelings. You're not allowed to show your emotions. You're not allowed to do this. You have to man up. You have to behave according to the societal standards of a male prototype. And I
right.
think this has been carried on since years, and now in this generation, even it's very frustrating. Like I have been told to man up, and I think it's not a very good experience because at that point of time, I really want to maybe show emotion. I really want to talk about how I feel, but I'm not allowed to. People just say you have to man up, and
Mm,
it also has to do a lot with childhood conditioning. Like since
mm,
childhood, all the men have been told, right, that men don't cry, men have to be strong. Like I don't know what's the definition of strong for them, but for me strength comes from showing your emotions, not hiding, and not like running away from it, right?
right.
So yeah. So I think that's about the thing about man up. So maybe to suggest what you can do if you're in a situation where you're asked to man up, you might just simply draw a very clear boundary where you say that I don't feel like rescuing or being rescued right now. I feel like showing my emotions right now. So
Right.
if you are not willing to give me that space, it's okay. I can understand. You may leave, but I will show my emotions right now.
Mm.
This is necessary. This is needed for me right
Do you
now. So I think
think the society has made these expectations for men as they perceive them to provide for the family early in early times?
right. And uh, I think this is where sociology comes in,
Right.
because this is not something which is very new, right?
Mm,
This has been carried on since ages. So if you
right.
have to draw a timeline and if you have to see it, look at it this way, imagine why did the men or women at that time, did they behave like that? Why did the women had to take care of households, and why did the man had to go and work? Because that was their structure. Half of
Mm,
the time there was a war outbreak, and the men had to, because men, they were considered more physically fit, they had to be taken to camps and or different whatever it was in their situations. So it's not like they chose to be like that, they were
right.
forced upon being like that, right? But now I don't think so we have that continuous forceful pressure of us to like really go out and work, right? So
Right.
that has been carried on. So if a
Mm,
man, for example, he does not want to um, go out and have a proper job, he wants to do freelancing, he wants to have a nice, in layman's language, nice chill life where he's doing
right.
his own thing and he's enjoying. But that won't be accepted by society, and most importantly that will not be accepted by the women. That is
Mm,
also a fact, because I always think of it at this way. If you look at it, Akash, um, we, like men, like most of the men have stood up with women, right, when they were asking about rights, like we want equality, we want this. Like I have stood up personally, and I guess you have also, and a lot of men have. right? So I think for such an issue, we also need women to stand up for us, because they are the ones who will be giving us the space to explore our emotions. Like
Right.
if they continuously think of, if they have a continuous prototype of a man, for example, like my boyfriend should be strong, my boyfriend should be this, how will a man express his emotions?
Hmm.
Right? So I
Right.
think it's very important for women to come up and help men to show their emotions and release whatever things they have, because a lot of things men just bottle up over the years. Like
Right.
they are not allowed
Right.
to show, right? I
Right.
think giving them that space, that yes, you can, and I'll accept you even if you cry in front of me. And I think that's a very big thing for a man to know. And even if you look at it from a perspective of a group of boys, for example, high school boys who are school friends, maximum groups you'll see that they are, those groups are not at all, you might not consider them as to be emotional. They have this very strong, मतलब जैसा होता है generally in general
Right.
terms.
Right.
Yeah, typical prototype. And I was maybe in my high school also, I have been subjected to that kind of group, and I felt very uncomfortable, because me as a person, I'm very emotional. I'm always very upfront about how I
Hmm.
feel, what I do, right? So I think also men have to understand that I also need to give space to my fellow, to my fellow man, and it's okay if he wants to come and cry. I
Right.
do not want to label him as weak. Crying,
Right.
it's very important that crying is not being weak. We need
Right.
to understand that, right?
I think. Okay. Do you think that it is unhealthy to repress emotions?
It is very much. It is very much. So, if you go by psychological literature,
Right.
Freudian literature to be very
Hmm.
specific, there's a thing called unconscious. I hope you
Right.
know, because you've conducted a lot of sessions on with psychology people from the field. So what happens is, so repression happens unconsciously, right? So
Right.
suppression is the counterpart of it, where you consciously suppress the feelings. Like, for
Right.
example, you're feeling sad that someone has talked rude to you, someone you care about has talked rude to you, and you do not want to feel sad. So you suppress the feeling. Repression happens unconsciously. You don't have control over the
Hmm.
things you're repressing, right? So what happens is, when going to the unconscious, right? So over a period of time, it bottles up. It
Right.
fills, and then there's a burst,
Hmm.
right? If you see that a man is trying to express his emotions and is getting the space, that burst is relatively of a lower intensity. But if it's happening with a man who has no space to explore his emotion, or has never had any space to explore his emotion, it might come out in uglier ways. To name
Right.
one, do you know what somatoform disorders are?
Right.
Right.
It manifests in physical forms, whatever mental issues you will face. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no biological cause of the
Right.
disease. It's just all psychological. So it might come through that, and that is a very common thing.
Right.
Someone I know personally is going through this as well.
Hmm.
And it's this common because it's natural, right? The anxiety, the thing has to come out.
Hmm.
Imagine it as a bottle. Like you can't just pour and pour. It's not unlimited. It has to come out. And if you're taking it out through the bottle itself, which is through expressing your emotions, that is a healthier way. But if you're not,
Right.
the bottle's gonna burst. And it's gonna be everywhere.
Right. Because
That's I guess.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's also a triggering point for people being neurotic.
Right. Right.
Neuroticism.
I think God has made emotions so that we can express them, right? And it's not that emotions have been made only for women; it's made for men also. So
Right.
they have
Very
to
true.
express. Yeah,
Very true.
and emotion is also a sign to your social community that you are facing a certain way, right? If you become
Right.
stoic all the time, then they won't be aware and able to help you.
Right.
Right? Okay. Uh, So, what are the childhood behaviors or influences that are given to us so that we are conditioned in this particular way?
I think childhood experiences matter a lot because I'll
Right,
just briefly take you through the process of how it happens.
right,
So, for example, um, your father, you're a man,
right,
you're a normal man, and your father has been putting this to you very clearly: men don't cry,
right,
right? What happens is you form a cognitive schema, which is a mental
mm,
image of the whole thing.
right,
Like, yes, men don't cry. That is carried on to your adulthood and throughout your life. If that
right,
schema is very strongly formed, right, inside your head, that yes, men don't cry.
right,
Now, what happens is now in your adulthood, you experience some kind of a bad event or negative event, and what happens? You want to cry.
mm,
Now it is conflicting with your schema because since childhood you have been told that men don't cry, and now that you want to cry, that's when you face psychological problems.
right,
That's the water breaks. That's when, like, that's the precipitating point, we call it in technical
right,
terms. So this is what happens. So, like I said, these things, these traditional notions that men don't cry, men are not to express emotions. I've even heard people saying that men should only take signs.
really.
That's, yeah, that's,
That provider schema,
yeah.
the
Also, like,
traditional job. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, since childhood, because you can't just label a 5-year-old boy and say that my son will take science.
right,
Like, he knows nothing about science. What is science? Like, he himself doesn't know what he likes.
yeah,
So they don't even get the space to explore what they like. They are
right,
imposed since childhood that you have to take science,
right,
right? And other such incidents as well. And then also one thing happens, it's through modeling. What is modeling? You just observe your parents and learn,
mm,
right? So this is a very powerful force for a child's learning and his future orientation of his own self. So he's seeing his father being the typical male prototype in the society, right? So
right,
he thinks that is normal. Right? He's seeing that in his family, all the men are doing the same. So
mm,
for him, that is normal. But if we have to break this chain, how about we in from this generation, if when once we become fathers, we show that yes, we are emotional. It's okay to cry. Then our children will think that yes, that is normal. Crying
right,
is normal. Comment is normal, right? So
right,
it's a very strong, it's like a two-sided domino effect. So once, like, it's very powerful for children, right?
right,
If child is seeing you and seeing you cry, and also seeing that his mother is very accepting of the fact that his father is crying, I think the child will be very okay to cry in his future, and very okay to express his emotions,
right,
right? And also it has to do a bit with genetics, I believe, like
right,
the affect, which we call it, all the genetics also influence. But I think these forces, like, imposing of notions and modeling, I think these are very powerful things for the child, right?
right,
Because we call it the nature versus the nurture. So nature is that you get it from your genetics, and nurture is what happens once you're born
mm,
and your experiences in your household or environment.
right,
So the nurture part for me, I think it's very important because that is
mm,
modifiable, right?
right,
You can't modify the genetics. You
right,
can modify the nurture part. You can be more. You can modify the environment of the child to
mm,
make him to into a better person.
right.
So I
So
think we could
we
focus.
as parents can modify that, but how about the peers? Because 50 or 60% of the time they spend time with their friends and they
Right,
get really influenced by them.
right. So but when we talk about the immediate environment, we
Mm,
generally consider our parents, immediate family
right,
members, like people living in the household. Then we
right,
consider teachers, and then we consider the peers of our school.
right,
So these three are the most powerful influences of a child's life or childhood
right,
during his phase, right? So I think for peers as well, but also if you look at it, the peers can influence the child if you're talking about it, but the peers also have to learn it from somewhere, right? So they have to learn it
right,
from their peers as well.
right,
They are not born with it. So I think it all starts in your own home. So
mm,
if you, like, make your own home a very nice and a very accepting into a very accepting environment, I think it can do wonders for the child, and the
And
child can.
teachers should also play a role,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course. Yeah, most teachers are trained well
Yeah.
to deal with children. They are trained, so I think that is a problem. I think which we have kind of solved, because
Mm,
in good schools, most teachers were dealing with children. They are trained in all these things, like how to
mm.
act to a child and how to respond to a child. So I think that is a problem which is easily solved. But beginning from your own home, I feel is the one which we should emphasize on.
Yeah. Do you think Bollywood glorification of men being stoic and not crying during the face of challenge is also an influence to children?
True, very true. But I think this happens once the child has grown up a bit, right? A bit, like not the very immediate childhood,
Right, right,
though it's a very strong force. In our country specifically, Bollywood it has such strong power over the
mm,
audience, over the people, like it's unbearable. Because
mm,
to a fact that people even copy their hairstyles and their get-ups.
right,
Right. Even to look at it, that is I think the very strong representation of how influenced they are. Right.
right,
But internally as well, to talk about a movie which I'm not very for and fond of, which is Kabir Singh.
right,
Like there has been a very nice debate and discussion about it. But from what I feel is that Kabir Singh, the representation of Kabir Singh it can be a story. It can, because there are men like Kabir Singh. Right? We
mm,
can't like possibly sugarcoat the reality. But my problem is that he was made the hero. That was my problem. He, like, a person who does that for me cannot be a hero. I
right,
don't know about you, but for me
right,
it cannot be a,
right,
right. And I think if you start including, I think there are series now, I think they are handling things much better, web series, where they
right,
show men who are deviant from the typical male prototype of the society. And I think I really like that, because
mm,
I think that, and also the whole thing about LGBTQ, more
right,
movies, more series are coming up, and I think even I am realizing that my parents are also watching this with like continuously, and there's a certain amount of comfort coming in as well.
mm,
Like I can if you would ask me this, I guess 5-7 years back, I don't think so. My parents would be that comfortable watching an
right,
LGBTQ
right,
movie. But
right,
now I think they're comfortable, they're watching and they're accepting, they're even talking about
mm,
it. Right? So the change is happening. But the main thing is that if you have to show men as emotional as well as they are strong, you can't
right,
just take out the emotional part and just show that they are just beating this, that, and all that, and they are very
mm,
strong and they are
right.
right. That is a very necessary thing for me, I guess, because
So
it has a very strong influence over the audience.
yes, it has. So we discussed about the male prototype. Can we talk about the female prototype that is expected by the society, so that we can know whether we should have an equilibrium, that masculinity and femininity, so called, should only be biological and societal expectations should eradicate.
Right. So, like the male prototype, we are all aware of. The female
Right.
prototype is also something which we are all aware of. They should be in their households. They should be disciplined, like to name a
Wearing
few
certain
terms.
clothes.
Okay, like most people know how what
Yeah,
women are expected to do in a society,
yeah,
right? I think because they have been subjected, again, it dates back to that time, subjected to this for over the years. They have also turned out as someone who really needs a man who is a typical male prototype,
yeah,
because they have to be a typical female prototype, and I also will be needing a man who is a typical male prototype. Because if I am not deviant from the society, why will I um, form a relationship with someone who is deviant from the society?
mm,
Right. So it has to start from both the levels. And
mm,
I think if you want to talk about masculinity and femininity, I think it's very subjective for me, at least, because what femininity might mean to me might not mean the same for you, right?
mm,
And going by, do you know who is Carl Jung?
yeah,
Yeah. So he talked about a thing called anima and animus. So it's basically female, in layman's term, female traits and male traits, which is both present in both the man
right,
and the woman. So it's like an equal share, right? So
mm,
I think it should be fluid. A man should know when to be feminine enough for the society, and a woman should also know when to be masculine enough for the society.
I
So that
think they take negative connotations that if a man thinks that he can be feminine enough, then he takes it in a negative way. That oh, मैं
right.
तो फिर लड़की जैसा बनूंगा.
Right. But femininity is not usually, matlab, I'm not talking about femininity in the sense of dressing up or something of that sort.
Right,
I'm talking about qualities, like emotional qualities.
right,
Like, for example, being kind to people. This is something
mm,
which is very much related,
right,
referred to with women, right? So it takes nothing to be kind.
mm,
You could be kind. So you should know as a man where to use your feminine qualities, where to use your
right,
anima, and where and to be a better person and help the society towards and take it towards a
right,
better level.
right, right. Okay.
Yeah.
What can we as society do to improve males' mental health?
We as a society, I think it is very important to be accepting of men.
Right,
We need to be accepting. We have to be accepting. You need to give a man space to be himself or express his emotions. That is very
right,
important.
right,
If you're not allowing this, the what happens, like we were talking about somatoform disorders, right?
right,
So it might go to that level. And if luckily the man can express his or her own emotions with other his friends or family, then it might take a less intensive path. Though I think it rather than focusing on the society, we could focus on the individual
mm-hmm.
orientation of the thing, right? It all
Right,
begins with us. So
right,
if I think that I will be more sensitive and accepting of men around me, I think
right,
that will do the same for everyone. Also, modeling happens. So if
right.
another man is seeing me being more accepting and open to other men, he might also adopt that,
Mm.
right? So
I
I think
think,
that's
yeah, I think it's a sad fact that it's socially acceptable that whenever you have pain or trauma, it is you can buy a drink or smoke. It is cool, but you cannot express your emotions like that. So
completely
that is a double-edged sword that harms your health and your emotions get repressed.
true. And I think because of this, all these things that you mentioned, these are all rescuing behavior. We call
Right,
like you're rescuing yourself from feeling the emotions. You're running away from it.
right,
You're avoidance behavior. And I think what we can focus on is rather than being more taking decisions more consciously. That no, I'm feeling sad. I'll not go for the drink. How about I explore how am I feeling? You can use journaling, write it down. Art is a very good medium. We use art in
right,
therapy. Art is a very, just paint how you're feeling. Just think about how am I feeling and just put watercolor strokes.
right.
It does wonders. It can like go a lot further for this.
Mm.
And I think it is also essential to really think of mental health being important. Treat
Mm.
it as equally as your physical health because
So,
it's very much interconnected. There is no good health without good mental health. There isn't. That's we need to just focus and get it into us. There's no good physical health without good mental
so what are the coping mechanisms that can be used to improve mental health?
health. A lot. That's like completely the whole new spectrum of things.
Mm.
Though I think for me, what works is being aware of my emotions. So for
Yeah,
example,
that is the first solution process.
I yeah, right. I generally ask myself, how am I feeling? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling angry? Right?
Mm.
It's sometimes it's very difficult to differentiate between the
Right,
both, right? Because maybe when you feel angry, your heartbeat goes up, and maybe when
right,
you're anxious, your heartbeat again goes up. So
Right.
it's very difficult for you to differentiate how you're feeling. So
Mm.
being more asking yourself, how am I feeling? Then really asking yourself, what can I do about it? And why am I feeling like this? Right? So once you're aware of why are you feeling like this, how you're feeling and what you can do about it, that's, I think, the 70% of work is done. Now you just have to sit with it and unpack
Mm.
it. Right? Now you just, because you're aware of what is in your hand. That is one thing. And also, like I mentioned, art is a very good medium. And I know, like, since we have grown up, people don't use art. Art is something which is um, considered to be a child's um, instrument or tool. But I feel when I started working with art and art in therapy, when we were learning things, I found it very powerful for myself, because there are things which you can't express via words, right? Writing
Right.
down and everything
Right.
helps. But to what extent? So I
Mm.
think those areas where I couldn't really express my feelings via words, I think art really helped.
So do you think that if person is facing some kind of issue that they cannot handle themselves, should
Right.
they go to a therapist?
Yes, definitely. You should always go to a therapist if you think that this is getting out of your hands. If you feel that this is something which I cannot manage, if you even, or even if you feel that I am not getting enough space to express myself or my feelings, go to a therapist and just talk and enroll yourself for 2 or 3 sessions, vent it out, and come back.
Mm.
It does not have to be something very serious,
Right.
right? So even looking at from the positive psychology perspectives in the West, people are even visiting therapists to build on their strengths. They have nothing
Mm.
wrong. They are just going there to build more on their strengths, right?
Right.
So we need that kind of awareness.
Mm. How can men control overpowering emotions that are usually associated with them, like anger or
And
pride or shame?
I think it is again very subjective, because you
Yeah.
need to know what situation you are in and how you're feeling. I think being aware. But what I do as a very psychological, I like to call it as a psychological first aid is I like to take deep breaths, like in from your
Right.
nose and out from your nose. I take 3 long deep breaths and I notice that immediately I'm calm, because
Mm.
it's biological, right? Your lungs
Right.
get expanded, you get more oxygen in your blood and system.
Right.
Right? So that helps. And other than that, if you want to look at the bigger picture, you need to make small steps every day to improve yourselves. A lot of men generally have anger issues, right?
Mm.
This anger again comes from the fact that they have bottled these emotions for over the years.
Mm.
And since they are not allowed to be weak, which is expressing your emotions or crying, they show it via anger,
Right.
right? Men
Right.
who have anger issues, try reflecting and introspecting that why am I behaving like this?
Mm.
Why do I feel like this? Why do I get so angry that I can't have control over myself? Right? At the end of the day, it's your brain, your mind, your body, right? It's easier to, in literature to read that he didn't have control over himself. But in reality, if you look at it, we always do have control over ourselves.
Right.
It's a conscious decision which we need to make as more self-aware individuals. Like, I'll not break this glass when I'm I'll
Right.
not do this. How about I take a step back and take a deep breath? Let's see what happens.
Right.
Right?
And like you mentioned, first aid. I think one of the first things you should do when you're feeling such overpowering emotions, which can have devastating consequences if you act upon them, is accept that you have that emotion, and yes, you are feeling a certain way, but not act upon that. So that will help you a lot, right?
And never make decisions when you experience an overpowering feeling. Make
Right. Right.
shame,
Right.
happiness,
Right. Right.
anything of that. So never
Right.
make a decision, because
Right.
that is completely based on your affective component rather than your
Right.
cognitive.
Right. Right. Definitely. Speaking of shame, like most men also feel that they have lost their manliness, or they're not good providers if they cannot do certain tasks or achieve for the family, like earn certain amount of money or did not get that promotion. So what can they do about that?
I think shame is one thing men really face difficulty in dealing with,
Right.
because a man being angry is much larger accepted by the society, because they
Yes.
see that men are generally angry. But
Mm,
shame, because
mm,
that shame is a very complex feeling. Like,
mm,
you feel as if your first of all your esteem is completely broken down, right? Your sense of worth is completely broken down.
right.
You don't have that sense of worth that yes, I can do this, I can do that. Now
Right.
shame again comes with a lot of guilt, like I cannot do this. Then it comes with continuous comparison with other
Mm,
people, that he is doing that, I cannot do that, what can
mm,
I do? I think what I would say here is that to realize that your journey is very different from others' journey, right? The time dimension you're in is very different from the time dimension they are. They might achieve things earlier, but
mm,
it might also happen that they have a poor health condition earlier.
mm,
You might achieve things later, but it might happen that you are having a good health while they are not having a good health,
right.
right? So it's always a bit of more or less in everyone's life.
Right.
If you look at it, no one has got it all. Good health, good finances, good relationships, personal development is very difficult to get it,
Right.
right? And I think the fact that we don't have these things helps us strive better and motivates us to do it. If
Yes.
we have
Yes.
got it all, I
Nietzsche said
think
it. Yeah.
huh, we
Nietzsche
would
said
have
it.
just, yeah.
Uh, we should strive to become an overmensch.
I think
Right.
uh,
Yeah. You were saying.
yeah, I was just saying, I was just wanted to emphasize on this as well, that
Right.
uh, this more or less thing motivates us, because if there is no less, there's no more. Like, you
Right.
have to have you have to have that emptiness and void to, which will help you strive further, right?
Mm.
Otherwise, if you get everything, you'll be just sitting idle, and that is not a life. I don't think so. Anyone would want to live.
My father used to teach karate, and he said that the person who has brown belt is more powerful than the black belt because he constantly fights to achieve that black belt. So they'll do everything in their power to get that.
Right. And I
Right.
thank you so much for sharing this. I might use this reference in other places as well.
Right. Okay. So I was watching I went to a cinema and I was watching this ad of Amitabh Bachchan. I don't know, it was about some jewelry or something, and he said कि माँ का बहुत अंदर का प्यार एंड बाप का बहुत दूर से करने वाला प्यार. So, do you think that the love and affection displayed by the father that is a little bit distant, and your memories associated with your father in the childhood may not be as much? If changing that can be done, do you think that men will have a better time expressing their emotions?
I think so. I really think so, because this again stems from the fact that they feel that as fathers, if we act as mothers and are very nurturing and very caring, we'll again
Right.
be considered as weak, right? So
Mm,
our love always for our children have to be very abstract, like
mm,
dur se, I love you. Matlab, they should get the idea that I love you. I'll not
mm,
show it through actions like a mother does. But
right.
once the father starts doing that, I think the child will also feel more accepted. You know
Mm,
why? Because again, like the modeling which I was saying, because
mm,
if he sees his father, being so warm and caring and loving the child through actions, he will also do the same with other people,
right.
right? And this is how love spreads, modeling,
Mm,
and the other people, it will spread from, it's like a chain reaction again, right? So I think it is very important for fathers also to come and physically be very close to your child, not
right.
just give them the idea and they make things very abstract there. Yes, I know.
Mm.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for such an informative session.
Thank you so much,
And
Akash, for calling me.
I hope we can have more sessions like that because
Yes, definitely.
such an important issues that you're covering.
Yeah, and I think you're doing a great work, and I've been seeing your videos, and it's with people who are here, and I don't even consider myself closer to them, the people
Dude,
you have in.
the topic you chose, like it's very good. Like very few people discuss this topic. Thank you.
Yeah, I really want to, because I personally am a very strong men's mental health advocate, and I really
Mm.
thought that it would be really great to share, because you have a good
Correct.
audience to reach.
Thank
And
you.
I think that you're doing a great work. Keep giving us more good content. I'd like to also see other content.
Right. Okay. I'll stop
Thank
the
you so
recording. Thank you.
much.